they are worried. They're worried because they know the truth of what is around us. I mean, you've got to understand, I fully accept there are a lot of Muslims in this country that just want to work, look after their families and have a normal life. I understand that. But what we also need to understand is there are individuals in our country that hate us, don't want to stand with us, don't want to integrate with us. And they will be extreme to the levels that we've seen throughout the last 10 years with all the terrorist attacks and everything that's going on. And we have to make sure that we call it out where we see it, because you cannot, just for the sake of being worried about the backlash, not openly discuss the issues at hand. Because if you don't discuss them, they just get worse and worse. They're left in the background, and then it gets to a boiling point where it all just goes bang.
The Central Club.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing, Weekend Defender, and the Lacana Coffee Shop. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the club, and hit the bell button to be notified of future content. Today, we're bringing you a part 2 of a guest that we interviewed back in London last year. I think it was about a year, probably a year and a half now. Time has flown so much, and to be honest, a lot has changed in that time. Part of the reason why we've got him back on. I warmly welcome Mr. Danny Tommo.
How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very enjoying Cardiff. I'm glad you invited me up here. I know we did it in London last time, but Cardiff is a beautiful city. I've had time to walk around, so yeah, glad to be here, man.
First time here?
First time here. Yeah, first time here. I've obviously heard a lot about it, but yeah, beautiful city, very beautiful.
What have you heard? Just the sheeps?
Well, just no, not like the sheep. No, just that it's a beautiful city. I know you got a big stadium right in the bang in the middle of it, which I've seen across the road from here.
Oh yeah.
Architecture. I love architecture. It's all very much a bit of me. So it was nice walking around. Very nice.
I'm glad. Well, thank you for coming. Nice. What I want to first do is, because we've done a part 1.
Yep.
On reflection, how do you think that went?
Yeah, do you know what? It was a release for me. Like I said to you last time, obviously up to that point I hadn't really done a lot. I'd taken a step back for the family, for work purposes, and yeah, it was a release that I felt like needed to be done. It answered a lot of questions potentially people had about me. So I know the response was quite good of it. So yeah, it was good. It was good to do. Like I said, I don't do podcasts, and that's why I've wanted to come and do this part 2 to talk about everything we want to talk about. But yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity. It was good.
Yeah, and I think when we done it, I think it was more just to set the record straight on who I am. I'm not Tommy Robinson's bodyguard. And we've worked together. We have worked closely, and I've organised events. I've done the event for people who haven't seen part 1. I helped organise the event whilst he was in prison. That's right. Which was actually shown on the Ross Kemp documentary, because when he was in the prison, the protest was happening.
I had a good discussion with him. It was good. I had a good discussion. Yeah, he came up to us.
Did he?
Yeah. And there's a video, if you Google it, he was trying his hardest to paint this as a picture, but yeah, I gave him. Yeah,
I that's what disappoints me with Ross Kemp on that. Like, it's so scripted in my eyes.
Absolutely.
And we done that to kind of settle that. And, I know things change and you never say never, but I thought that was it with us. I thought that, because the way that you kind of was mentally set with your mind, you was just focusing on family, your religion, and kind of put that bit of a chapter behind you, didn't you? You did. You didn't want to do that.
For the right reasons. It was the right time for me to do that at that point. I felt like I'd put my family through enough at that point, and I needed to take a step back, work on myself, work on the kids, work on the family, work on the job, and it worked very well. I'm now in a position where I'm able to go in and go out. I run a business, so I don't, I beforehand it was all or nothing, and trying to survive was hard, but now I'm able to fund myself and everywhere that I go. So yeah, but that isn't the reason why I came back. The reason I came back is because it got to a point where I believe it with my religion and everything that I was doing, I felt I had more to give. We went down to London for the Remembrance Sunday. That was sort of gave me the taste of what we were used to do and the pride that we had on that day for our fallen soldiers. And then into organising the first, which is St. George's Day, really, I just felt like I could give. And if you're in a position where you can give, I think you'd be an idiot not to try.
Yeah.
If you can change or bring awareness to certain issues, I think it's only right that you man up and you do what's necessary. I felt that was the right time to do that. So I came back.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people at the moment, keep hearing this word silent majority, but there's a lot of people who are probably fed up with the way things are at the moment. But with you, it's not just, that feeling maybe of the way the British public are being treated in general, but your religion plays a big part in that as well. It's like you've got two reasons for it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, obviously the religion side of it has been massive for me, being able to cope with life, really, until last time we spoke, obviously I made you aware that, I'm entwined in the Christianity religion, and even now more so, where I could see that there was an implementation of the Christianity within everything that people were doing, especially the marches and everything else. And that called to me to say, okay, maybe it is time that I do something that I know I'm capable of doing, because now it's part of the journey that I'm on, the Christianity journey, that now they're implementing that into the marches and into the speeches. I can give some towards that. So I felt it necessary to do. Yeah.
Well, I think we're talking about religion and stuff, but I think it's important, because I think that's what Calvin Robinson covered on our podcast, which was, this day and age now where Christianity has kind of fallen to the away side, and Islam has been this growing religion. Those who aren't religious has that void of wokeism and stuff. It's really eating up a lot of people, and this is why we're seeing the problems we see today. And I think for Christians who genuinely believe in their faith and their country, this is a perfect time really now to push Christianity back into the lives of Western civilization.
The only reason people are now starting to really open their eyes to what's going on is because of the things that are happening to our children, to them in their society, in their lives. When you look, be it religious or not, we all live by Christian values. We are a nation that abides by Christian values. You only have to go back 50, 60 years. I know we spoke about this before, but, living your life with those values enables you to have a good life. It's when you slip away from those values and you start going into different directions, then you start seeing the type of things that we're seeing today. And when Christianity is brought into a fight back for your nation, a fight for the future of your country, you cannot lose, because everything that you do, and you do it with Christianity, you bring God into it. And for me, it was a journey that I feel I was being pushed into by God to say, you have to do something with what you're doing. And I use that now with Christianity in everything that we do.
So if you could describe the current climate in a few words, or in a nutshell, how would you describe it?
The climate as in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's refreshing, actually. A couple of years ago, a year ago, I would have said it was the complete opposite. But right now, we are seeing a complete turnaround of what I believe was coming. What I mean by that is that what we're seeing now is people are starting to really open up to the fact that then they have to be able to say what they think without these labels being pushed upon them. Now, when you look at the marches that we've done in the last few months, it's very apparent that people are now at a stage where they look at their society, they look at the way things are going, and they realise if we don't actually do something now, we're going to be in a very bad situation in not in a long space of time, that we won't be able to change it. So the state of things right now, if you look at the marches, you look at the implementation of Christianity into the marches, you look at reform, you look at the way that political spectrum is turning, we're in a good position. It just now needs to continue that way.
So a lot of people would say that it's too late, it's done. Would you not say that?
It's definitely not too late, because only someone that's really given up on themselves, their family, and the future of their country would say that it's too late. It's never too late to fight for things you believe that are right. And number one is your family. Number one is the future of your children. Number two, three is your country and the direction it's going in. So I believe it's never too late. And I definitely do not think we're in a position now where we can say that, because of the gains that we're now seeing with the political spectrum and the marches, and the fact that we've gone from being viewed as, far-right hooligans hitting the streets of London to now concerned citizens, Christianity influence into that with people coming to these marches shows that things are now different, and we've progressed to a point where we've matured. Tommy's matured. I've matured. I feel like I've matured. I'm not so hot-headed these days. I can sort of, when I talk about these issues, when I'm on stage or when I'm speaking in Speaker's Corner, I'm able to give these the reasons why we're trying to do what we do in a way that resonates with people, and they understand it and they listen, and that's important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Dan. In terms, if you add that element of Islam involved in this, do you feel that it's turning into where before we maybe wanted to just coincide and have a healthy Christian religion and coincide with other religions? Do you feel now that it is getting to a stage where it is us against them?
I think you have to look at the religion of Islam to understand what it stands for, and look at the history of the religion and what it's done through the ages. And you'll understand that we have to separate Muslims from Islam. I know people say you can't do that, but I believe you can, because the religion is different to the people in it. Now, when you look at Islam going back, however long you want to go back, it's all about control. It's a takeover. I mean, anyone that tells me it's not hasn't read the Quran properly. It is about taking over. And that's why, the Crusades happened. This is why all these things throughout history had a fight back against Islam. Now, when we look at the spectrum in our own countries right now, the thing that I find quite concerning is that the Muslim vote, as they call it themselves, is starting to have an impact on our political spectrum. You have certain candidates that are now not talking about any resonance to recent problems in the UK or any problems in the UK for years have gone by or years to come. It's all about Palestine. They're actually running their campaigns on the basis of Gaza and Palestine. And that is concerning, because you can't have secular, groups of people trying to bring in politicians for one issue that's nothing to do with the country that you're living in. So I think we're at a point where people are opening their eyes to what Islam is and how it's changed our communities. You only have to look at Birmingham, Rochdale, Rotherham, and Bradford, definitely, to see that. So at this point, it's very relevant, because we are a Christian country. We fight for the Christian values. We fight for a Christian nation, and there is a lot of, we fight this from a love perspective. We're going to fight this until people realise that we have their back. They can say what they want, and it's good to go into what happened at Speaker's Corner, because exactly what happened is sort of a situation that happens throughout the UK. Is where we had a situation where someone from the Christian community, who was a black doctor from the Christian community, he was a speaker for Christianity, was attacked in Speaker's Corner. They tried to set him on fire. They tried to beat him up. They took his Bible. They ripped all the pages out of his Bible. And within a week of that, we gathered at that very point where he'd been attacked, and we fought for the nation, for this nation. We fought for for our religion, and we went there and we had a huge show of strength, and to show those that practice Islam down there that we are not there for confrontation, but we're there to show them that we are strong. Christianity is always going to be strong. And people say, well, you can't fight hate with love. Well, I believe you can, because you can do that until it comes to a point where you can't now use love. We're not weak, but we're not willing to go down to their levels. We're not going to practice any violence towards anyone. We're going to show what Jesus was about. We're going to show how much he cared about his followers. And what we're there to do is protect the Christianity as a faith. And that's what we're doing in the United Kingdom. What happened at Speaker's Corner is now what's happening throughout the United Kingdom, is we're there to protect our country, our faith, and those that live within it. So,
yeah, I think that's really, really sad that someone, was almost set on fire. Because I always thought that Speaker's Corner was a place where you could express your freedom. It was a place to debate, and no one would get offended by that. And that just shows it's not really.
That's the rule number one, is that point there throughout history has been a place before social media, before the internet, before anything really, where you were able to go, no matter what religion you were from, you were able to preach, you were able to argue, you were able to shout, but no violence. And that's now, we've had situations down there where a woman has been stabbed because she was preaching Christianity. We've now had another preacher potentially tried to set on fire These are things that cannot be accepted.
You don't really hear this either, do you?
No, you won't, because of the instigators and the suspects of who are doing it, because they are worried. They're worried because they know the truth of what is around us. I mean, you've got to understand, I fully accept there are a lot of Muslims in this country that just want to work, look after their families and have a normal life. I understand that. But what we also need to understand is there are individuals in our country that hate us, don't want to stand with us, don't want to integrate with us. And they will be extreme to the levels that we've seen throughout the last 10 years with all the terrorist attacks and everything that's going on. And we have to make sure that we call it out where we see it, because you cannot, just for the sake of being worried about the backlash, not openly discuss the issues at hand. Because if you don't discuss them, they just get worse and worse. They're left in the background, and then it gets to a boiling point where it all just goes bang.
Well, when you look at the Ukraine and Russia conflict, and you hear the British and NATO and America, how they speak so passionately about, we have to stand up for Ukraine. If they do Ukraine, what's next? Poland, then us? But they don't seem to have that same concern about what's actually happening in front of us with issues like you mentioned.
Yeah. I think when you look at the Ukraine war, when you look at the Palestinian cause that's going on at the moment with Gaza, and you look at the COVID, these are manufactured, not what's out the physical side of it, but these are manufactured by the media to put these issues in your mind, to give it an opportunity for everyone to have a talking point. It started with COVID, and suddenly when COVID went, the Ukraine war, then suddenly it stopped. Then we're talking about Palestine. We're in a position where people need to really understand that the media will do this because that they only have one route to make carnage, and to keep people separate. There'll always be people on one side and the other side. And by these points, COVID, you either were with COVID, or you're against COVID.
Yeah.
Ukraine, you're either with Ukraine or you're anti-Ukraine. Palestine, you're either with Palestine or you're not with Palestine. These are objects that are put before us to keep us apart. There's no coincidence that these things go 1, 2, 3, 4 and continue. There's no break, because people can't have that break. So it's all manufactured. I believe it's all manufactured.
And it's overlapping. Yeah. Some may frizzle out, but at the end of the day, some of them still continue. So it's double the pressure, quadruple.
Because even you only have to look at Ukraine. In 2014, they overthrew a government in Ukraine. The Americans helped overthrow a Ukrainian government, and then they implemented their lapdog. And then you have to look at these people in Crimea, these people on the east side of Ukraine. They talk Russian. They want to be Russian. Now, I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. I think he's a bit of a nutter, but I think we need to look at this and say there has to be responsibility from the West side to understand what's going on. It's not just Putin suddenly decided one day to invade Ukraine. I think there's a lot more behind it. But at the moment, all I'm interested in is United Kingdom, interested in England, interested in making a safer place for our children and their futures.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to sway off onto that topic. Yeah. I was just giving an example of how that, they seem to see this problem which is over there, but not the problem what's in their faces. Why,
Well, because you can look at a problem that's far away and you can have an opinion on it, and your opinion will even never be right or wrong because you're never there. But when you start talking about things within the communities, you're at a point where you can see it. So it's more of a talking point. People don't want to see the rise of what we're seeing in France with Le Pen. They don't want to see the rise of the AfD in Germany. They don't want to see what Geert Wilders in Holland. So by doing that, they need to keep things as topics that are far afield, that then aren't sort of focused on our own communities, because that's what's happened in France. That's why Le Pen's doing so well. That's why the Germans are now going to AfD, and that's why I believe Geert Wilders has got in Holland. In Holland, yeah. Because people started really seeing what was happening in their countries.
But Britain, as we see, before I go on to that, I forget the fella's name. He's Muslim, and he did a video, and I don't think many people thought we would see this, or they just don't care. But it was on his channel, and someone exposed this, where he was talking how this could be an Islamic country, and what we'd have to do would be a military coup. The way to overthrow this country to become Islamic would be through the military, get people in who are from the religion of Islam, high ranking, and eventually throw them over. But he was saying it so brazen, as if like, you know, they might say it was hypothetically, but still that's the dangerous thinking. So, you know, it really baffles me that you have that. And then you have the mix, well, what we see now. Ahmed Yacoub, who we interviewed, who, you know, was a great guy, respect him for what he does as a criminal lawyer. He's run for mayor now. And when all those elections happened, there was a lot in the culture of Islam who became mayors of different areas across the UK.
Yeah.
So you can see why people would be concerned, because this could be another way of doing that. And also, to add on to that, you don't see any of that in Holland or in France. There's nowhere else in Europe that's happening, is it? It's just the UK.
Yeah, I think it's what we're seeing at the moment is you got to look forward. If there is a plan, which I'm not, you know, we don't know if there is or not, but if there is a plan for the Muslim community to take over, I believe it will be politically. I don't think it will be now. I think it'll be in 30 years. What we're seeing right now is groups of the Muslim vote are coming away from Labour, which is normally their go-to people. They're coming away from Labour and they're standing as independents. It'd be interesting to see what happens on the 4th. It'd be interesting to see how many of the Muslim vote went away from Labour because they abstained from the ceasefire. I mean, there's a lot of videos at the moment of the Muslim community going after Labour canvassers or Labour candidates and videoing them and having a go at them. So
yeah, when they're knocking the door.
Yeah. So what I think is, well, if there is a plan, I think it would be done politically. What we're seeing at the moment, but you know, it only takes a real right-wing government to make sure that what potentially could happen won't happen. And the roots of how that needs to happen is to make sure that, you know, if you're running a campaign based solely on a foreign conflict and have no ideas or anything for your community, you shouldn't be able to run. I don't believe you should be able to be picked as a candidate if all you're talking about is trying to stop a war between two countries in a foreign land. So I don't know. It's a hard one.
Well, that's it. A lot of these people have said, "Yeah, I'm doing this for Palestine," but they're running in Bradford or they're running in Leeds, and
all
you're
their
like,
campaigns are
"What are you about your area? If that's what you're running for?"
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
I understand the frustration of Palestine. I get that, like, you know, and you know, I don't agree totally what Israel are doing, but if you're running for an area and then you're not waving up the crest of your borough that you're going for, you're waving up a Palestinian flag. And you only got the vote because of that.
Yeah, it's a scary one, if I'm honest, totally honest, because like you know, who's voting? Who's voting for these people? I mean, if you look at our communities, look how bad it is. I mean, go away from the middle classes and the high classes. You know, you look at the working classes; they're struggling like really badly in every areas of the UK. And people aren't. You know, there's all these constant conversations about Palestine and Gaza and Israel. It's quite daunting to think that we've got up to a position where no one's really talking, only reform really massively are talking about what differences they can make to the immigration side of things, because it's just chaos at the moment. But no one realises how bad it actually is. I mean, if you actually stood on the beaches of Dover and actually sat there for a week and put a tent up and stood on the beaches of Dover and watched, if it was only one place that they came in, watched these small boats coming in, and you saw the volume of people that were now entering our country with no ID, no idea who they are. You know, the reason that a lot of these men run from their country is because they've done something wrong. The reason why a lot of men from this country, if they've done serious crimes, run to Spain, because they've done something wrong. You know, and people I don't think they hear the numbers, but you have to actually visualise those numbers coming in. I mean, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda have made it very clear that they've sent people in under the umbrella of immigration through the boats. You know, God knows what could happen. It's going to be scary, man. It really is, because we've opened the floodgates. You know, you can't go to France without having a passport. You can't go to America without having a passport. These men, we don't know what kind of crimes they committed, and you've got to understand their way of life. This is the most important factor that people say. You're just anti-immigrant. No, listen. These men are from communities where rape of women is normalised. You know, women are not equal to them. You know, the police are corrupt as anything. You know, the way they've lived their lives is totally different to the way that we're brought up. And then when you import those type of people into our societies, You can only wait for something to happen. It's not if, it's when things are going to happen. And you don't hear about them because they're not reported. But, when we went to Ireland to report on the immigration in Ireland with Tommy and a few others, the women are scared from what they're seeing. It's so scary because their little towns are changed forever because these single men from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Somalia. I mean, if you just research about the way of life in Somalia, it's a war zone. These men are dangerous to our society, to our women and to our children. But you won't hear that on the mainstream because they don't want to scare people. But it's the reality of what we're looking at.
I've seen a meme today and yesterday, two different ones, and it made me laugh. It was like the Taylor Swift concert, one of them. The other was a football match, and it was security, how tight, just to go to a football match and just to watch Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And then it showed you the beaches of Dover.
Yeah.
And I was just like, if you put it in perspective like that, you're right. They have. I genuinely think that the government know this, and they're doing it on purpose.
It has to.
It has to be
because it's not a coincidence. Happen everywhere. Like if you looked at the world,
America.
If you put a line on all the entry points of migrants into the world from third worlds, it's happening everywhere.
To Western
worlds, it's happening. It's no coincidence. It's happening everywhere. It's no coincidence that it's happening in Germany, it's happening in Holland, France, England, even the southern. Look at the southern border of America. It's carnage. You've got people that are from, from this part. Of
all their prisons are empty in Africa now. They said like a lot of these places, their prisons are being emptied and they're being flew over to South America.
There was a report this morning that a migrant boat off the shores of Italy. There was a few men on there and a woman and a child. I'm not sure how old she was, but I know she was I think she was about 12 years old. The man, one of the men, migrants, started raping this young girl and killed her by strangulation while he was doing it, while her mum was held on the other side of the boat, watching what happened. These are the type of individuals that we are saying are, refugees are welcome here and all this. So you until you realise the extent of what's actually happening, it is an invasion. You cannot call it anything else. When hundreds of thousands of single men land on a beach of a country with no ID, it's an invasion. It's only because we're in 2024 that it's not publicised as an invasion.
Yeah, and if you didn't have a criminal record, or you would come, because they pay a lot of money to get on these boats, some of them. So if you've got that money and you are legit, you would get a plane, wouldn't you? Or you would somehow get that legal.
How are they getting 10,000 euros or £10,000? That's how much it's costing. How are they getting that money? And also, for me, it's quite daunting to look at the response from the British government. Now, they've got satellites that they can use that can come down and look at an individual person sort of a doorway. But you're telling me they can't scour the beaches of France and see where a group of 40 or 50 people are about to enter onto a boat?
Did you see the one when the French they slashed the thing? And did you see the one guy they followed who was getting really angry? And
do you know what? When I saw that, the first thing I thought of, how convenient that a news reporter camera happened to be present when a police officer just happened to have a knife and just happened to find a boat and just happened to put a thing. I believe that was completely staged. Really? I think they knew that they were going to go from there.
Under pressure?
Under pressure.
Let's make up, we are doing something.
That they can do. We're fighting it. Okay, we're getting millions of pounds. Let's make a video where we're slicing a boat and showing.
Well, the Rwanda thing, is...
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. The Rwanda thing will never work. It costs way too much money. I mean, you think of the amount of people that are coming into the country and the amount of people that they're saying they can take to Rwanda, and it costs, I think, £120,000 per person. I don't even know why they're continuing it. It's an absolute shambles of an idea. It will never work. We need to come up with we can't do anything about those that are here. We can't, because we're in a convention where it stops us from pushing these people back to France. We can't send them back to their own countries. A lot of them are from Iran, Afghanistan. We don't have any treaties with these countries. We're never going to be able to get on the phone with Iran or Afghanistan and have a chat with Al Qaeda to see if they can send some people back. So it's all about preventing those that are coming rather than getting rid of the ones that are already here, because I don't think there's a system right now for that.
Yeah.
big topic.
Yeah. We could speak for hours and hours and hours. I know I got someone sat in the back who's very vocal about this as well, and I think a lot of people are, and
how can you not be?
And people get classed as being either racist or whatever else for talking. It's not. It's common sense.
But it's not just. What you got to understand is when we look at England, it's England as a country. When you look at those individuals that are concerned about mass immigration, there is no colour to the people that have issues with mass immigration. It is a general consensus around the black community, even the Asian and Muslim communities. They agree that the mass immigration is too much. So you have to be logical, and if you care about, when you see these protesters on the streets where they're migrants are welcome, all this stuff, they are all from backgrounds that do not live in the societies where immigration is impacted. They're middle class toffs that live in nice houses in nice areas that have no understanding, and because they have a friend that's down the local corner shop called Ali, they think that everyone is like Ali. Well, let me tell you now, everyone is not like Ali.
I also think that a lot of those just want to see Western society crumble and burn anyway.
They understand the reality of it. That's what I think. They don't understand what the damages are. They don't get it. What they do is they're trying to be good people. They're trying to look at this and saying, you're trying to stop people that apparently are, in need from being looked after. France, there is no wars happening in France. Why would a migrant that's living in France want to come to England? The reason is because we are a soft touch. They know they'll get money. They know they get houses, and they know they don't have to prove who they are. And that's why they want to come here. In France, they're not really looked after. You look at the places in France. You go to Paris. There are underneath bridges, just thousands of tents of all just living on the streets. This isn't about them looking for a good life, I believe. I think it's all to do with money motivation. Who in their right mind...
Economic migrants.
Who in their right mind, if you are fleeing a war-torn country, who in their right mind leaves their women and children behind? You should be sending the women and children in a best way that you can. If you've got 10,000 euros, trust me, I could probably get a very decent way across Europe quite cheaply for 10 grand. You should be sending these people. I would take a refugee, a real refugee, woman and child. I would happily take that person into my house. I don't care what religion they are. If they needed help, I don't care what colour they are, I would take them in. But that is not what we're talking about here. We're really, really not. And the stark reality of that will hit people in the faces unless we get what we're looking for with reform over the next few years.
Let's talk a little bit about how you did then come from, retiring from activism to the Cenotaph.
Yeah. So what it was is that we started seeing the heavy presence of the Palestinian marches in London and the disrespect. You got to understand, there are statues in central London that are iconic to our history, massively iconic, and represent, a really sad time where people died fighting for this country. Winston Churchill statue, the Cenotaph, all these magnificent statues and places that we can go to on places like Remembrance Sunday. And we started noticing that these monuments were constantly having barriers put around them. And there was a video of they sprayed Churchill was racist on the actual statue itself. One of my friends, Dean, who's a bricklayer on Instagram, he was actually videoed at the place at that time, cleaning up around. He was the only person they'd thrown all rubbish on it. So I started seeing all this, and it really got me. And I thought, okay, this is not good. And then Tommy was like, look, we're going to go down to the Cenotaph. We're going to take a few lads. We're going to be peaceful. We're going to go down there, show our respects, but we're going to make sure there's enough of us to show a strength because of what happened the previous weekend with the Palestinians marches, because they started climbing on the Cenotaph. The police officers weren't telling them to get down. These are iconic. Anyway, so we landed in London. It was a beautiful day. It was cold. It was a cold November day. There was loads of us. There was a good 2,000-3,000 football lads, patriots, just caring people. And we noticed very quickly that the police weren't getting the shots that they expected. They expected everyone to come rowdy, giving it this, giving it that, and no one did. Everyone had total respect for the day. And when we got down to the Cenotaph, towards the Cenotaph, they had directed us for some reason round the back of the Cenotaph into a tiny little sort of like corridor And for no reason at all, they just suddenly they let maybe 1,000 people through, which paved the way, and then suddenly they just got in front of everyone and just blocked people off. And when you do that to like 2,000 lads, families, that's where they're supposed to be going. You're now blocking them and telling them, not giving them a reason why. A bit of pushing started.
What's going on, people? I want to introduce you to Cardiff's best kept secret. This is what we call a head shop, or some may call it a coffee shop. It's basically a candy shop for those laid-back chillaxers who are looking for a natural herbal remedy to offset their stresses from modern life. They got gummies and cookies, exclusive papers and packs, dried herbs and extracts. They got it all. And the coffee is delicious. That's a pound, babs. So head on down now to the Canner on Woodville Road, Cardiff for your CBD, your coffee, and your good vibes. No, I don't smoke.
Police, they wanted their shot. They needed their shot for the day. Exactly what happened on St. George's Day. So, yeah, listen, we went there. There was a little bit of pushing, but that was the start for me where I got the itch a little bit again, because I felt so much pride in what we'd done with the country, on that day, to remember our fallen. So, yeah, it was a really good day, and that's where it started for me.
And we get that a lot, don't we, with these statues and that. And to be honest, Winston Churchill wasn't an angel. There was, there's a lot of people up the valleys who are not happy because of the, before the war, something happened with miners' protests. I think some people got killed, on the orders of Churchill. But at the end of the day, he is our fucking hero when it comes to World War II.
Yeah.
It's the same as Trump. I don't think Trump's the best guy, but we need someone like Trump right now. You don't need Biden in America. You need someone like Trump.
Yeah.
Who there was no wars when he was about. And it's the same with Churchill. And another thing about statues I would say is, good or bad, I don't care. Don't take those things down. Why do we need to... We shouldn't be erasing history. We should be learning from history.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, Winston Churchill, I mean, you if you know the history, the real history of him in World War II, without him, the war would have been lost. It's that simple. Because of the decision that was made solely by Winston Churchill not to start peace talks with Hitler, not to give in, and to make sure, because even people around him were telling him, let's talk to him, let's get peace deals, let's do this. Without him and staying by a figure, you've got to look at the way that Tommy, people say, Tommy, you've got to stop this, your family. No matter what's said to him, he'll always carry on the fight for the right reasons. And Churchill did exactly the same. That's the reason why. So that's why, yes, he might have done bits in the past. Everyone's got a history. We take it upon, he saved this nation from what could have become, especially from the Nazi side. So, yeah, it's important we always respect everything that he did for us.
I think what's quite ironic, which I saw at the Stradey Park Hotel when the migrants were there. I don't know if you saw that. I covered that. And what was quite funny there, same again, kind of middle-class liberal protesters, stand up to racism, Llanelli. They wasn't from Llanelli, they were from Bristol. They were paid £40 to go. They were bad actors.
Yeah.
And they were actually calling the old people of the town of Furness and Llanelli, some of them, families of war veterans, Nazis. And we hear this now as well, far-right Nazis. So protecting what we... our cenotaphs and what we celebrate about what our great ancestors and soldiers done fighting the Nazis. You're now being called a Nazi for that. How the hypocrisy is ridiculous.
I think as well, getting to a point where they just had weight 2, 3, 4 years ago, these labels. And like I say when I do a lot of talks on YouTube and stuff, is we're at a point where it doesn't matter what they say. The media, those that are on that side, they will always say this because it's in the playbook. What the left are doing in this country and have done in the last 3, 4, 5 years is exactly what the brown shirts did in the 1930s in Germany. It is no different. They made sure they have full control of the narrative that went out, which is now happening with the media. They made sure that they closed anyone down that had a voice, that could voice anything rather than Hitler's idea of Germany. They closed them down. They used violence, which is Antifa. Antifa are the 21st century brown shirts throughout Europe, and people don't realize how similar they are to what happened in the 1930s. So we're at a point now where I tell people, you have to forget the media. We are the media. You're the media. We are all the media. Because even looking at videos that are on YouTube about what's going on in this country, they get more views than Sky News and the BBC. So I say to people, don't worry about what's said anymore, because no one believes it. And it's irrelevant. The more irrelevant they become, the more they may change their way of thought. But if you give them the substance of acknowledging what they're saying and fighting against it, it gives them substance, and that's why they carry on.
Well, I think if we didn't have social media and we only had the choice of channel 1 to 5, then it would be changed, and we would care, because, you know, my mum and dad, they still watch fucking TV, and my dad's pretty clued up. My mum, she's very, very conservative, I would say, and you know, I was sat there the other day and just done from work and just watching TV, and just even adverts and TV and news, and it just makes me laugh how like tokenistic and how it doesn't represent Britain as a whole at all. And if we only had channel 1 to 5, we wouldn't allow that. But because we are, you know, we have got social media and we just kind of not bother with that anymore, it gives them the chance to double down on that a lot more, I think.
You only have to go back to Germany in the 1930s. Why did a population in the 1930s, how did Hitler convince the whole population to turn against
propaganda?
The media, the propaganda, and the ability to prevent any other information that could go into the masses. Now I'll go back to Tommy. The reason we're the strides that Tommy's making at the moment is because people are now have the ability to see him for what he really is, rather than what the media had told them for years upon years as to what he was. And that's why we're in a position now where things are growing so well. Definitely moving forward.
I just want to quickly stay on the topic of Tommy, quickly. The clip, I put a clip out the other day, did you see, from your podcast?
Oh, right, yeah.
Where I said about, do you think Tommy's racist?
Yeah.
Did you read any of the comments?
I did. I think I replied to a couple.
You know,
yeah.
You know, oh yeah, that old chestnut, he has black friends. I'm sorry, but any racist that I know probably wouldn't have friends of the colour they hate, and they would just admit they're racist as well.
Yeah. I mean, you got the word racist, word racism, when you go back 30, 40 years, what it meant to be a racist and what the sort of skinhead sort of way of life of feeling a way that you did about black or brown people. Like it's unfortunate that no matter what racism now happens, it's so blasé that the real racism is now pushed to one side because everything's labelled racist. And even the black community now, so I've seen multiple podcasts, people say everything now is just, if you don't agree with something, it must be a racist. It's just, it's crazy, but it's good that people are now seeing that for what it is, that the labels don't stick anymore. But again, people that are racist, and there are racist people in this country, it's a shame that they've sort of taken that stigma out of the word, and now it's just thrown around, which doesn't highlight the real racism that happened. So it's a weird one.
St. George's Day, that was a day that you organised, yeah?
Yeah, so basically what it was is originally it was mad because Tom was in court on the Monday and St. George's Day was on the Tuesday, and I said, look, I want to make an event for St. George's Day. He said, well, look, I don't think I can be there. He said, but I'll help you push it, let's do it. So I spent then about a month just absolutely smashing it, sort of promoting the St. George's Day, and then we found out halfway through, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks before, that his next court date was on St. George's Day. So we were like, what are the chances, you know? And then I spoke to someone, I said, look, what are the chances that, he said, well, look, if the judge throws it out, and he throws it out in time with 4 o'clock, I can be there. So I was thinking, imagine that. Imagine being in London with all these patriots, St. George's Day flags, and then suddenly here comes Tony Robinson's one against the Met Police. And God willing, that's exactly what happened. You know, I worked really, really hard to get this event off the ground. The police were agreed to allow me to do it at Downing Street, right bang in the middle of Downing Street. And then on the Friday before, I had a call from the officer and he said, they've taken it off the table. You can't do it at Whitehall. I was like, it's Friday. The event's on Tuesday. What are you talking about? He said, well, we can give you a grass area to the right of the Cenotaph. At this point, I thought, well, just take what you can get because they're start. So we took it, and it was such an iconic day because we'd not had something like that for a long time. A lot of what we'd seen in central London was either Palestinian flags, Israeli flags, flags for different nations, for all different causes, but we'd not seen a day for the St. George's flag or for English. So, yeah, it turned up, and, it all went really well. We were doing big patriotic songs. Christianity was implemented massively into the day. We had a pastor, we had a priest. Every speech, including mine, was talking about how important it is to have Christianity in everything that we're doing moving forward. And then I got a text halfway through, probably about 2:00, from Tommy saying, I'm on my way. I've won. And I couldn't believe it. So the fact that, through the years of me doing all the events, we'd never had a time where Tommy had won against the Met Police, against the establishment. And we're in a position where we had 2,000-3,000 people on a Tuesday, which was fantastic for a Tuesday. If it had been a Saturday, God, it would have had 20,000-30,000. But, to have that day and then suddenly Tommy turns up and gives an iconic speech, it was the beginning for me realising that, I think I'm back. Yeah. I think I'm about to get involved. And yeah, just a great day. Great day for the English. Pride for the English on that day gave so many people a sense of hope for the future.
Well, as a Welshman, as a Welshman, I've got a lot of Welsh friends who are very patriotic. I'm patriotic, but St. George's, they'll piss on the St. George's and vice versa. Banter. Yeah. But it was really nice to see. After seeing, I think it was the flag in Nottingham, I think they had to take down and just, people getting arrested for waving their flags. I'm actually surprised that they've actually allowed to wear the flags in the Euros. I'm surprised nothing's come out of this yet. So it was nice to see, and the fact you brought the Christian element into it. I've always heard this word Islamophobic. A word that we mentioned the other day is, what about Christianophobic? Sure, is that come into play? Never hear that term, do you?
No, you don't. But I think we are a strong Christian nation, and if people want to be against Christianity, they have a right to say what they want to say. And listen, if you're not for Christianity, that's all for you. But don't make it a word about it like they have done with the Islamophobia. We have serious concerns. So does the whole world. Even Nigel Farage recently talking about the Muslim community in certain aspects. We have serious concerns, and they are legitimate concerns. You don't have to make a word up just because we have those concerns. So when it comes to Christianity, I think everyone has their right to say what they want, but don't attack us physically, and that's what we sort of speak on it, because that will give a response of what we saw. So we don't need a word. We're strong Christian warriors, and we'll stick up for our religion. That's what we need, not some word.
Yeah, so fair enough. I think it was the 1st of June then that there was the real big turnout. Was it then? How was that? Because the reports from the police and some of the media was different to how it's been.
Very different, and that was very, very good. Now, there's a few elements to why it was different. Number one is that it was done from a point of view of maturity, to talk to people about what had been going on and why we were doing this. Step number two is Tommy was completely on his game. Tommy's had a few hard years, and it was just everything seemed to fall into place.
He got beat up by Diablo, didn't he? So
yeah, he got beat up by Diablo.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
But no, it seemed to be that the elements of that event, they were warned. And what Tommy did is he did something that we didn't really do in previous years, is hold the police to account prior to the event. As in, what I mean is having them agree things, sign things, agree that they understand and it showed that when they stand back and they allow our days to unfold, there is no trouble. They are the instigators to the trouble. And also the fact that there was a documentary about the Metropolitan Police being played on a huge screen in the middle of central London probably made them think we'll probably try and tone it down a little bit. But the other element from that was Christianity and the amount of love on that day. Normally we talk about very heightened subject, very fearful subjects that sometimes come across very controversial. Now, on that day, people took what we were saying because they knew that it was the truth. When you try and convince people of a truth, it's difficult sometimes to get them to believe it. But when they know it's the truth and you start railing them off in speeches, and people that were talking, Lawrence Fox, Mayor Tusi, Tommy, people resonate with it. And there was so much love. And the fact that a lot of people were scared to come. And when they saw on the first, the love, and there was no, it wasn't football violence, it wasn't a thuggery, it was literally thousands and thousands of British people caring about their country. That's why I believe the next one, the 27th of June, is just going to be incredible. Incredible. And just to put it out there, Tommy's live stream was at 1 million people. My live stream was at 250,000, 250,000 people. Now, a lot of what was done on that stage towards the later in the afternoon after the documentary was shown was a lot to do with Christianity. And the fact is that when you are a preacher, it's very difficult to get people together to listen to you preach when they're not potentially not Christians or not potentially in the Christian faith.
Yeah, how did you swing that? It worked, did it?
It worked because it's the reality. Because when we look at the history of our country, the history of Christianity, everything that good comes from what we've done with Christianity, and that we're now taking the Christianity away from the churches that are closed and they're not modernising the church, they're not implementing things to bring people together, to keep everyone. We've taken it away from them and we've given it back to the people. That was a catalyst for what we're seeing now.
Well, there's one thing that, again, would have been, always is labelled in the media and by probably small-minded people from the public, far-right hooligans, far-right normally meaning racist. But from the part one that we spoke of, and that I know you go to, you as Baptist, I saw your baptism videos, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You don't come from a church that is covered, in a very OAP kind of setting. Right. You're in a modern church, and the majority of them are black.
That's right.
Aren't they? Yeah. So people saying this, they don't even have a clue really of what you're about and what you celebrate and what you stand for.
Yeah, but even if they did, they still wouldn't take it. This is what I try to explain to people, is that those that hate us, and when I say us, I mean this new revived movement of patriots, of British people that care. Those that hate us will never change their views. It's like the media that you could have Tommy save a black child from dying off the coast of England or something, and walking up the beaches, and they'd still turn around and say he was a racist. So you have to forget them. You have to forget the media. You have to forget the left, the ones that are just indoctrinated to believe what they believe, and just get on with what you're trying to do.
But what's the shame is, like, for example, I work, and from having Tommy on my podcast, or Calvin Robinson and Lawrence Fox and yourself, I've actually had backlash in my 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
Not by my company, but people from other companies who will try and that's where the problem is. Where there's a lot of people who probably wouldn't speak up because of their jobs, and that's very, very sad.
Yeah. Well, that's why this vote on the 4th of July is so important, because one of the things that we saw in America was a lot of people couldn't say what they wanted to say in 2016. So what they did is they had their say by voting Trump. That's what I believe. They couldn't openly just, have their say about what they believe. So they voted for someone who has the same beliefs. Now, I think that's what we're looking at now, is that I think it's going to be a crazy election next week. I really do. I think that reform has given people the ability to have their say without actually having to come out and say what they want to say, because reform stands for what they say. We haven't been in a position like that before.
Well, we spoke about this last time, which was a very different look on the political spectrum. We were talking about UKIP and where they might have messed up.
Yeah,
that was one thing I didn't think I would see, would be Tommy, actually align with anyone like Nigel Farage. And I think that's what a lot of people have been dying for, craving for. Just come together. You have the same values. And do you think reform is different in that realm?
Yeah, I think they are different. I think they've realised that the vast majority of people believe what they believe. I think that, yes, it would be nice to see Nigel and Tommy together. I don't see that happening right now. But what I do see is I do believe Nigel has realised that he cannot talk about Tommy. What I mean that is in a negative light because of the backlash he'd get from it. I don't believe that Tommy has aligns himself totally with Nigel Farage. I think
for Nigel's sake. Yeah,
but for Nigel, for the sake of the country, for the sake of reform, he's doing what he can to push out for the reform vote. And that's why I've been very silent. Since the event we had in Speaker's Corner and the first, I've now taken a step back from doing normal videos and promoting things until after the election, because I believe it's important that what I do now is use my platform to push out as much as reform stuff as I can. And that's literally all I do at the moment, is just share things on Twitter, share things on YouTube in a way to try and help the reform vote. And then after that, back to normal business. Let's get people back on the streets, because the unfortunate thing is the reality of things that people don't realise is reform is not going to change anything very soon.
Yeah, well, people need to understand.
Yeah, it's a long term.
I think that, what reform could run the country in July?
I don't see it. No, I don't see it. What I see is that.
What do you see?
I see Labour coming in, because the Conservatives have completely messed themselves up. They've committed their own suicide for their party completely. What I see is Labour coming in, but I think you need it. What happened in 2020 when Biden was elected, it then gave them 4 years to see what the other side would be like.
Yeah.
And now look at the gains of what Trump has, because they've allowed a lunatic that doesn't even know where he is half the time to run the country for the last 4 years. I think we need a Labour government for 4 years, because what will happen is that within those 4 years, reform will grow so big that within 4 years, reform will then be the major party.
The thing that's concerning in my eyes, and something you said at the beginning, is the Muslim vote was always Labour.
Yeah.
They've pulled from Labour.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other people who were Labour were the working class British Christian values. They're pulled away from Labour.
Yeah.
When people realise that Labour is no go after 4 years, is it some sort of...
Yeah, I mean, the very thing that people don't get about Labour is when you look at Labour's last election result, it was last Labour election result was their worst since the 1940s. Because Jeremy Corbyn, no one really knows what's going to happen next week. I mean, can you imagine if the silent majority who normally vote Conservative have had enough information for them to believe that they then want to vote reform? Because
could they actually? Reform could. There is a potential.
I don't know.
Not in the realms of, just in the realms. It's a possibility if the votes went in. They could actually.
They'd need a lot. They'd need millions and millions. But you never know. I mean,
because the thing that's funny.
Look at Leave vote. I mean, when we left the European Union, I think it was 17.6 million people voted for that. All you need is 17.6 million people to vote for reform. And wow, you've got a reform government. So I don't see it happening now. I think within the next 4 years. But I think we need to see the devil that's in front of you to be able to realise the extent of the devil, so to get the devil out. And I believe Labour and their politics are definitely the devil within this country.
Okay. So you've got a march coming up.
Big one. Big one. I get the feel for this one that this could be the biggest we've ever done. I believe that this has the ability to change a lot. It all depends on the results from next week. I mean, if the results next week show a huge gain for reform, which I believe it will give people the drive to want to get involved. I estimate between 50, 60, even towards 100,000 could come on the 27th. It has to be pumped out properly. I know Tommy's away at the moment. When he gets back, it's all go with promoting it. We were looking at travelling different places and talking to different communities and everything else. But right now, as soon as the election's over, I'll be back on YouTube speaking with people like Paul Thorpe, Dean, all different people, Richard Inman, because we're getting huge numbers on lives at the moment and people that have never watched lives and done anything. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But the 27th, I mean, we're taking over Trafalgar Square. We've got a screen, one of the biggest screens that is available in the UK. Taking over Trafalgar Square completely. It's going to be interesting, very interesting.
Let's quickly go on to the Tommy situation. We've seen in the media recently, he's away. He's away. In Canada. Yep. When I first saw this, I just thought this is a piss take. They've just done this because it's Tommy Robinson. And, I've seen people, propose, ha, the irony. And I'm just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. What's happened?
So I think what's happened is that he's entered a country that is run by Trudeau. We know what Trudeau's about. I mean, we've seen what he's done to his own people during COVID. Probably one of the worst countries you could go to try and stay neutral. I think what happened is he's gone there. They've probably got wind of the social media presence of him being in Canada. A call's been made, and they've somehow, somewhere, just like the UK establishment, have made a way of keeping him in wraps, because he's not allowed to. So he turned up in Canada, went to an event where he was speaking, packed out the place, had a great event, walked outside, and there's immigration officers there that arrested him, put him into the back of a car, took him to the police station, kept him for a couple of hours, told him he needed to give his passport in the next day, and now he's in a position where he's actually physically stuck in this city, cannot leave, cannot go home. He said, well, can I just go home? He said, no. They said, no. So I don't really know what's going on at the moment. All I know is that Tommy's trapped in Canada and he's not allowed home.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he was supposed to be doing different events
In Canada, yeah.
in Canada, but he's not allowed.
Did you say he was meant to see JP?
Yeah, so Jordan Peterson, he was supposed to meet his wife, and I know that Jordan Peterson tweeted about Tommy when he was arrested, saying, okay, shall I come to the city that he was in? So there's a potential over the next few days that Tommy will be sitting down with Peterson, which is a massive one, massive interview. So yeah.
Well, JP sat with Mohammed Hijab, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
I don't know how that guy gets airtime. I really don't. He's an extremist. He is a full-on extremist. I really don't understand.
Well, he gets on Pearson a lot.
I don't understand it. I mean, you clearly haven't researched this guy properly. I mean, I've known about him for a long time. I've had back and forth with him a few times, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say that about people without having proof. About this guy discusses underage sex as something that we should accept. If a young girl is sound of mind, talks about a 9-year-old being sound of mind, and that if she's physically and mentally ready for it, that she should be able to have. It's crazy stuff. And then you've got videos of him.
Ali Dawar called it the fallacy of presentism.
Ali Dawar was the same. It was absolutely wrong. And he said he would give his daughter at 9 years old, allow his daughter to be married at 9 years old. It's on camera. I've challenged him multiple times at Speaker's Corner, but Mohammed Hijab is even been seen on the streets.
You have challenged Ali.
Oh, massive!
And what's he do? Just refuse?
Well, no, he can't. There are a lot of taqiyya, so a thing that's used within the debates between Muslims and other faiths is a thing called taqiyya, where they will just bounce around the question, even though you have them by the balls. They will bounce around it and try and deny it.
Do you know the other guy who's down there? He's a revert, white, ginger beard.
Yeah, I've seen him. Yeah. I've not spoken to him.
But he wears like the footy club. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
you've seen him.
Yeah, I've seen it. But I want to just make sure that people understand. I don't call someone an extremist without fully knowing about them. Like I because of what we.
A lot of these are probably good Muslims.
Yeah, listen, Mohammed Hijab is a bad person. His
Really?
views are bad. The way that some of the stuff. I mean, he's on the streets via video talking. If the Jews come at us, we will put them down like dogs. We will. So really, really naughty stuff. He's an extremist, 100%. How he gets airtime, I do not know. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's sad. The people like that are getting on the mainstream, but it's a token. It's they have to.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the biggest problems with the UK right now.
Yeah, they don't want working class white lads that have an opinion. So,
unfortunately, Well, unfortunately, if you did have, if you wanted to go for a job as a presenter, let's say, and you were the best for that job, if someone from a different culture, they get the job.
You know what that's called? It's called racism.
Yeah.
And we're now at a point where even the BBC...
They call it equality, don't they?
Yeah, they're putting out on the BBC adverts saying you have to apply for this job, you have to be from an ethnic background, a black background, or from...
But that's not a true representation of the UK, because the BAME community only brings up, 20%? Yeah. I don't know the correct numbers, but it's certainly not 50%.
Yeah. Well, it's just if you've got corporations like the BBC who are at the top of the corporations in this country openly being racist towards white people in a white country, in a Christian country, that says everything you need to know about what's going on. And anyone that thinks that this is just trying to give opportunities to other individuals, there are a lot of opportunities for migrants ethnic migrants in this country. That's why pretty much every takeaway, every shop, every taxi, every Deliveroo, every Uber Eats, they've got a lot of opportunities. And the white working class children of this country are the ones that are doing the worst in schools at the moment, because all the emphasis has been on other groups. It should just, they're making the problem. Everyone should be treated as a person, not the colour of their skin, not from where they come from, but what their ability to do the work and ability to take the jobs. And that's not what you see.
I see it in football. I see it in, even like punditry. There was a Scotland pundit. But like, I don't even think he was a good footballer, to be honest. He might have played once or twice. But because he was mixed race, he got the punditry job. Yeah. Yeah. It's in everything, It's jarring.
The one that I heard was most concerning was that there was an airline in America that had basically put out that they were looking for black and ethnic minority pilots. No, so they weren't looking for the best pilots. Yeah. They were looking for someone from...
Well, no, if he's a good pilot, then fair enough.
Yeah, but they weren't asking for good pilots. They were asking for black pilots. Then you're not asking for the people based on their merit, based on the fact that they can do the job. You're asking for people to come to a job based on their skin colour. That's racism.
What do you think of the fact of this is going towards it again, maybe, but like with the LGBT or the trans community, someone who's gone through that transition going into a female sports? What's your take on that?
So you have to distinguish the difference between the gay community in this country and this LGBTQ plus whatever it is agenda, because I know a lot of gay people. I do. I know a good amount, and I would say 5 or 6 people that are gay, and none of them are on this LGBT. It's a cult type agenda that they're trying to play the victims when in reality, it's acceptable. It's acceptable in this country. There is no, back years ago in the 70s, the difference between now and then is huge for them. And I think it's quite sad that they're trying to take away from just being, you're just gay. You just like men or you just like women. That's the reality of it, to what they're trying to portray it as with these flags and what they're doing in schools. The gay people that I know don't agree to any of that. So sad.
I definitely agree. I really agree. And I have gay friends, gay family. I got 2 gay family members, and I don't see them really waving these flags. I think it embarrasses them in a way as well. Of course they're proud to be gay. They are proud of it. But we're in the month of Pride now, and okay, I'm a date to celebrate. But do you agree with it being a month to celebrate it, or
months for what? I don't understand it. For me, it's like, you're gay is not. You shouldn't have to celebrate the fact that you're gay. You're just gay. Just get on with your life. No one cares. Like, we don't care. If you want to be gay, that's absolutely fine to you. We don't need to indoctrinate people into believing some of the things that this LGBT agenda holds. People, we've got to a point in our lives where we accept people for who they are. But what they're doing is they're making it harder for themselves, because this agenda they're trying to push, they're not keeping it to themselves. They're trying to change. I mean, we're the gayest world we've ever been at. If you look at the statistics of gayness in the world, this is now the height of the gayness. Now, and I think they're trying to, when you push on children, they're confused. I believe it's an agenda to try and stop people from having the normal
kids,
the normal life.
Depopulate.
I mean, I know people say it's a conspiracy, but I think you have to look around at the moment and see that the changes in our world, not just in the UK but around the world, it has to be not a coincidence, and it's not a plan that's been put in place. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I want to just quickly talk briefly on the election in America before we go on to something which is important as well. Yeah. Do you think Trump's going to...
So I think one of the things good that's happened is America's been given Biden for the last 4 years. And for the last 4 years, they've seen what it's about, and they understand the severity of what Trump was trying to do. You only had to look at the thing they did last night, debate that Trump and Biden did. now even the Democrats, even the left media who hate Trump are now saying he has to go. Biden has to go because he is clearly not with it.
Yeah.
And if he's clearly not with it on a stage, I mean, he rambled last night. You have no idea what he was actually saying. The guy,
I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I actually do feel sorry for him. But I also think that if he's like that, who is actually calling the shots?
They don't care about him.
Definitely not calling the shots because he can't. Because I don't believe he could. I mean, you think of what type of conversations a president of the United States must have with his generals, with people from State Department. These are in-depth, real. This guy would not be able to hold a conversation.
Well, it just shows that the people who are controlling him are hiding, which is not a good thing. Out. And also, they are taking him off till the wheels come off. Yeah, it's like they're breeding him until he can't breathe no more. It's really, really sad.
It's elderly abuse. I mean, if he was managing to hold his own, they were talking about him. Even left organisations, I heard on the radio, talking about why didn't he get medicated? Maybe so he was a little bit more with it. Thinking you're actually advocating to drug the president of the United States to allow him to be more active in a debate. But it's acceptable. Imagine if that was Trump. Imagine if Trump behaved as Biden last night. I mean, you wouldn't hear the end of it. You wouldn't hear the end of it, and he wouldn't be allowed to run. It just shows you the power of the other side, which is
and if you look at Biden many years ago, 30 years ago, like he was a very smart, witty guy, and
he was having a hard line. I mean, he was the reason. He was the reason that so many black people were incarcerated into jail for having tiny amounts of drugs. He used to say that if you've got more than a dime of whatever their coins are, if you've got more than that on you, you're going to prison. Yeah. And then his sons are. He's a crackhead. His son's a crackhead. So the hypocrisy, it's crazy.
But now he says, if you don't vote for me, then you're not black.
Yes, I mean, crazy.
That's what he said, didn't he, on his first campaign? If you don't vote for me, then you ain't black.
Yeah, he didn't realise what he was saying. Again, he had no idea what he was saying. He's not with it at all. And the people talk about him having doubles. They talk about...
Oh, I've seen some plausible ones, yeah.
And I've seen some plausible ones. And do you know what? Looking at the way the world is, it wouldn't actually surprise me if they had someone to be able to either deep fake him or have someone else.
Putin's got a lot of doubles.
And then deep fake his face.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's easily done. I mean, AI these days is mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, there's something else I want to talk about off this topic, really important, because we spoke about it. I don't know, we're actually filming a documentary as we speak, and we spoke about maybe getting you involved with it. You commented on one of the videos we done, and then we spoke to Dapper Laughs about it, which is obviously addiction, cocaine, alcohol, and links to suicide. Yeah. It's no secret. On your last podcast, you spoke about your father who, unfortunately, took his own life. Yeah. And more recently, someone who's very instrumental and close to you, Tommy, and your whole kind of circle.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start here?
Yeah, so one of the most important things for me these days is actually trying to make sure that my brain is okay for my children in the future, because I'm so worried about how easy it is for people to go downhill these days, and the difference between having one phone call which could make such a mad difference. What I say about my brain is where my father took his own life, he hung himself. And then one of my really, really good friends recently, I've only just buried him on Monday, he also hung himself. Now, the two similarities between those two people are alcohol and drugs. For my father, it wasn't recreational drugs, it was antidepressants. For Bomber, he had a problem before he went back to Iraq. This happened in Iraq. People don't understand what these chemicals in your brains, what happens to the chemicals in your brains when you're on cocaine and when you're drinking. Leading up to the days of him committing suicide, this is Andy Bomber now. I was talking to him right up to the last few hours before he actually left, and it was clear that the chemicals in his brain were saying things and doing things that I knew he didn't mean. And he was sober at that point. So in my mind, I thought, why is he saying these things when he's sat in Iraq? He's not doing anything. He's not drinking. Then I realised that the come down from having the binges prior to him leaving and going to Iraq had a detrimental effect on his mental health when he landed in a room on his own. You know, the paranoia set in. You know, I'm not where, you know, I don't do anything now, but I remember the days of the paranoia. And I've seen a lot of people with the paranoia of cocaine and with paranoia of drinking. And those two substances together there needs to be more awareness of how easy it can lead to really bad mental health issues. Because people these days are not willing to talk about, like, Andy. I didn't know Andy was going through this until his girlfriend rang me and said, "Can you talk to him?" I said, "Well, what's wrong with him?" He said, "Danny, he's really struggling." I've just spoke to him a few hours ago. He's sound, laughing, joking. He said, "No, he's really not good." And then when I actually dived into having him to open up to me, that he felt like he was a burden. He felt like his paranoia was taken over. You know, I've been on holidays with Andy. We've had he's had good times, and I know that paranoia it can be a killer. Like the paranoia was so extreme, and I thought, but he's sober. And then in my mind, I was researching it, and then I got realised that those come downs can last for ages. It's not about 1-2 days later. They can last ages. And when you're in that world of cocaine and alcohol, and you suddenly stop, your brain does not recover straight away, especially if you're doing it, your body. So it's a difficult time. I mean, I've gone a bit here, there and everywhere, but, one of the things I really want to do once the 27th is over is I want to do something for men's mental health, because it's, losing my dad 18 months ago put a huge pressure on me to have to look after everyone. My sister's older than me, but I realised straight away that everyone was looking at me as a where are we going with this? What am I doing? I had to take the full brunt of my dad's death because I was the only one that came to the funeral. None of the other family members could bring themselves to go. This is when it was in France. Standing there with my dad's coffin as the only person, that really, really affected me to a point where, it made me a better person because I realised how short life can be. But then looking at what happened to Andy, there's a problem. There's a serious problem, and not enough people are talking about it. And we're losing people. Myself, in my life, I've lost 2 really, really good friends, not both, 2 to suicide, and then my father. And you just think something needs to be done globally in this country to help men deal with what's going on, because the way that the life people have to live their lives at the moment is very, very difficult. Very difficult to pay your rent every month. Very difficult to be the man, and provide for everything without having that detrimental effect of mental health. And when men then go to drinking and to cocaine, that just elevates the problems massively. I cannot really think of any person that I've been friends with or been on a session with who hasn't ended up looking like a weirdo. Like the effects that drug has on people, but then because you're in that session, the next day when you're off it, or the next 3 days later when you're off it, you're never talking to it about each other. Like, he was weird as fuck. He was looking out the window. He was hiding in the bathroom. He was putting the gear into the back of the remote, saying the police were outside. You thought your missus was outside. She's 5.5 hours away. Like, no one ever talks about what actually happens on a set. It's all fun. It's all joke. But really, you're going through a serious mental health breakdown when you're sniffing this Charlie, because you're all acting like absolute weirdos. And I don't think that's spoken about enough. So that's...
I think it's glamorised.
Yeah, it is glamorised because, I think... but everyone knows that everyone ends up in someone's kitchen. But when you're in that kitchen, if you could just video you in that kitchen and then send it to all of you the next day, you'd all be like, oh my God, look at us. We look like absolute weirdos. Everyone trying to get their story in, everyone itching, everyone trying to have that line, everyone looking out the window, everyone,
telling the story you've
told
100 times.
Yeah, and it's important that people understand. The youngsters understand the effects of it. Listen, I know that we're never going to stop people from having to take cocaine, but people understanding that you go to a certain level, it becomes then normal for you to get to that level every weekend, and that's the problem. That's the problem. And it destroys relationships. It destroys relationships. It destroys families, and it takes people's lives. There's a direct result, I believe, from cocaine and alcohol to young men in this country taking their own lives, 100%. And I think it's important that people talk about it more. And I want to do something. I want to do something to raise money for a real charity, not these fake charities that take this money and pay. Well, listen, there's a guy, just really quickly, there's a guy currently called Sam Walker who's out in Africa at the moment, and he's actually exposing Save the Children. Like he's out there, and there's an office that says Save the Children, and 100 meters away from that office, there are kids begging for food. 100 meters, and then he looked into the finances, and the managing directors of these charities are taking hundreds of thousands of pounds. And the money that actually gets down is like 5% of what everyone donates.
I agree.
5%. You need charities.
Yeah, the fact
it needs to be an overhaul of charities. People need to look into these charities, because if these charities are actually doing the right thing with this money, it could be a real help to take people that are in addiction and to simply give them a line of hope could change everything.
Yeah.
And people, I've been there. I've been there. You've been there. I mean, look at you now. You know, we have to do more, because it's a scary time for young people.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, fair play to Sam Walker for doing that.
He's doing well, man.
With the Co-Alk Alliance, they're just mothers who have lost this. So, like, the charity is the mothers. So it's not some random geezer that, you know, who's sending a load of people to go and cold call, sign up here. Like, if you, it ain't like that. They don't even ask for money. It's not even like a sign-up thing. But, you know, it would be a great place to start, because they are here for that one specific thing, that is suicide through cocaine and alcohol, and that's who we're doing the documentary with. So, hey, maybe you can get involved and help with that.
I'll do anything. It's so important. I've always said this. I said this to my missus, and I said it to my mum. I said, I feel like I need to do something once all this stuff, you know, the election's over, once the 27th is over. I do want to do something, even just to raise some money and awareness, because everyone knows the reality in their groups, in their circles of friends, how bad they all get, and they need to talk about it. Because it's not fun. Like, I know people that as soon as they take a line of cocaine, they're a weirdo. They're hiding in hotel rooms. They're hiding in their bedrooms, looking out at curtains like that. Your brain is telling you want to do these things, when in reality, your brain should be telling you, when you do it, you're going to turn into a complete idiot, a weirdo. And I think awareness will do that. So it's important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, mate. Yeah. Okay, so after 27th, before we wrap up, after the 27th, you would like to pursue something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that you will continue to fight the fight you're fighting now?
Yeah, I'll do this as long as I live. My daughter is 9 years old, and the only way that I've managed to protect my daughter is to put her in the middle of nowhere, in a tiny little village, in a tiny little school. And I know that a lot of people in this country don't have the opportunity to do that, and they are very worried about the future of their kids. But what we're seeing with reform, what we're seeing with what Tommy's doing and what the public are doing, there's hope. There really is a lot of hope. And I just hope that other groups, other communities in this country get involved. Because if you all get involved, you can actually change
the problem and frustration for me is, I think the majority of these people who don't get involved or don't agree with reform or don't agree with Tommy, they want the exact same outcome.
Yeah. That's why it's important to be what Tommy said on the 1st of June is, this isn't about him. This is about us as a nation. He doesn't want to spearhead this movement. He wants to be a part of it, like other people are. Anyone with an ability to put information out there to help with the cause should be part of this. And that's the message that we've put across on the 1st. And then the actual message on the 27th will be the plan that's in place to get behind reform, get behind the politicians that actually care, and not this lip service that we're currently seeing through Labour and Conservative. I think we'll see Nigel we'll see Nigel in 5 years. In
5 years, not 4.
And 5, not 4. In Downing Street.
Really,
I do.
And what about Tommy? Where do you think Tommy would be in where? Do you think he would settle off in the sunset and try and stop doing this? Or do you think he'll never stop?
I think if he was going to do that, he would have done that by now.
But he's being more accepted now, isn't he? So where do you think, is he got a role to play in?
I don't think it's about being more accepted. I think people have realised the truth. And what's now happening is Tommy has managed to align himself with some very prominent right-wing speakers. Calvin Robinson, Lawrence Fox. You got to understand, and Mayor Toosey, like Lawrence Fox and Mayor Toosey, a couple of days ago, were stood having conversations with Nigel Farage. So there's a direct link between what Tommy's doing and what Lawrence and Mayor Toosey are doing to what this now huge giant of a political movement is now happening in the UK. So when you put that element of what Nigel's doing and the element of what Tommy's doing, they will naturally align because that's the only way that this will work. Because if you have division, like you had with UKIP, now you
divide and conquer.
Now you've seen what it's turned into.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important that Tommy gets involved as much as he can. But I don't see him being a politician yet. I think his ability to put the message across in his documentaries is massive. He's got such a knack for it. And Tommy is in a position right now where he is focused. And Tommy focused, God knows what could happen. We could see Tommy as a politician in 5 years' time. You just never know. He did it for the European Union when we did the MEP campaign. You know, he has that ability to do those things. He's run the campaigns. We had a great time. So yeah, never say never.
Before we do finish, there's one of the topic that's really taking the UK by storm right now.
Right.
What's happened to Jay Slater?
Yeah, man, it's a weird one. I mean, I've been to Tenerife many times. With Tommy, without Tommy, I've stayed in about 2 or 3 kilometres away from where this kid went missing. I think that the ground, I know the area that he's gone missing at, the road that he was walking on, it goes, hills go up, there's nowhere really scouring those hills, and there's a slant drop.
Into the ocean?
Slant drop, yeah. Well, not into the ocean, but into like ravines.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, with everything that they've got and have had for the last 12 days, I think if he was there, they would have found him. Because then they would have had helicopters out.
There's nowhere else.
Yeah, they've had huge search teams. They're now asking for other search teams to come in. I know there's a big conspiracy about, was he a drug dealer? Did he get involved in drugs? Did he, are there some serious gangs in Tenerife? Yes, there are. Are they connected to serious Moroccan gangs? Yeah, they are. There's a lot of money to be made on Tenerife because it's the closest country party island to all of these sort of...
Yeah, and they're not happy with this. I don't think they would have all the eyes on it.
If the Moroccan gangsters or whoever potentially they're saying might have him, this is bad publicity that they will not want. So I believe if they had him, they can't let him go.
He would either show up on the side of the road by now, wouldn't he? They want it over with.
I don't know. I think this has turned into a 3-part Netflix documentary, and we won't know the truth of it for a little while. Strange one, but I know that the kid got involved in some mad stuff a few years ago. Yeah. But at the end of the day, this is a young lad.
Of course,
he's got a family. We all have done some very silly stuff. Stuff that I look back at and can't believe I did. And we just hope that he gets found. And it's a message. If it is to do with drugs, and it has to do with these gangs, it's a stark message to the youngsters that go there: do not get involved, because the Moroccan gangs, the African gangs, are savage. They will kill you without even thinking about it. Chop your head off without even thinking about it. And again, even Somalians apparently as well. These are the people that are also important into our country that are willing to do these things. So, yeah.
Do you have a theory, though? Do you have a theory?
I think he's dead. And I think the phone was taken to the area by a young lad who they think was him, wasn't him. That was the lad that took his phone to that area to get him away. And I think he's dead. I can't see him hiding. I can't see him hiding around Tenerife. Tenerife is a very cliquey place.
I think he's had a drug overdose. I think, from the state of him,
he
probably died, and they don't want to.
People don't just die from drug overdoses. The drugs
some can.
Yeah, but I don't think from what he's if he was on coke or pills, you have to take a lot for your body just to die.
Of course, sure.
I know heroin overdoses are a bit different, but I think too much time has lapsed for him just to be found in a field somewhere. Too much time has lapsed for him to be found. You've got to understand, you can go 30 days without food. It's 30 days without food, but you can only go 7 days or 4 days without water. that's lapsed. You know,
Of course.
if he's alive, he's being held against his will. But somewhere very deep, maybe the north of Tenerife. Strange. But I hope he's found. I hope for his family. I hope it's all good. But sad.
Definitely. And England are definitely not winning the Euros, no?
They definitely will. I always have hope. Listen, we look back at the World Cup. We had a similar sort of start to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Very similar. Start to the World Cup. So I think there's a lot of criticism. Let's see it.
Don't write them off.
No way. I mean, they got an easy game coming up. I believe an easy game coming up Sunday.
Foden's just gone home, haven't he?
Well, he's back now.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, he's back. Yeah, but it'd be good to see Palmer up front. Palmer but he was the best player on the pitch, and he was only on for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and also Gordon. I think Gordon was a real.
Yeah,
he was the only one that was throwing the balls into the box. Didn't see that into the game. So yeah,
the youngsters on it.
When I went to Germany, I was in Germany for the first game. What an atmosphere! You know, we had walking down the road with like 10,000 English lads was just incredible. Well behaved.
Good.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
Dan, you know how we do it towards the end, mate. Down the camera to the people of the UK, really. Give them a final message, right?
Yeah, my message would be to look after yourselves. We've got a hell of a lot of work to do to get the country up to where we need it to be. Most important thing is looking after people within your own family. Make sure you do what's right. Stay off the drugs, stay off the alcohol, and live a life. Nothing is more precious than family. And when you're gone, you're gone. You only get a small time on this earth. And I would say, like I do, spend as much time as those that you care about and look after the country that you live in, but do it the right way.
And 27th of July?
27th of July is going to be a huge day. It's going to be obviously more of a crowd than was there last time. This is a real show of strength, a real ability for people to come and have their say, come and be part of a community, part of your own community, and a fight back about what's happening. So 27th of July.
Where can they follow you?
Trafalgar Square. If you want to find out information, it'll be on YouTube and on Twitter. Tommy Robinson, New Era on Twitter, which a lot of information, but Danny Tommo on YouTube and Danny Tommo New on Twitter.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. If you enjoyed this one, guys, hit a like button. Make sure you share this, leave a comment, and of course, stay central.
The Central Club.